The sun burned harshly over the alien spaceport. Ships hovered and zipped across the sky, leaving trails of bright light in their wake. Alien merchants shouted over each other, selling rare fruits, shiny metals, and strange glowing devices. Crowds of aliens moved through the market, their long legs and bright scales brushing against each other. Among all this noise and chaos, a small, frail figure crouched in the shadow of a metal crate. Lyria was tiny. Her skin was pale compared to the bright colors of the aliens around her. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she had not eaten properly in 2 days. She hugged her thin arms to herself and peeked at the market, hoping no one would notice her. But they always did. A group of alien nobles walked by, their clothes shining like crystals, their heads held high. They were tall and strong, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. One of them, a large blue-scaled alien with golden horns, spotted Lyria and laughed. "Look at that weak little thing," he sneered. "She can barely stand. Maybe she will collapse before she even tries to eat." The others laughed with him. They threw tiny scraps of food at Lyria, not enough for a bite, just enough to humiliate her. She tried to grab them, but her fingers were too small and weak. The scraps bounced off her hands and fell to the ground. The nobles laughed even harder. Lyria bowed her head. Her throat was dry and her stomach burned. She wanted to cry, but she knew tears would only make them laugh more. She dragged herself behind a stack of crates, hiding from the world, her small body shaking with hunger and fear. "Why are you even here, little one?" a sneering voice called. "Go back to the dust you came from. You do not belong in the sun." The words cut into her heart. She had heard them every day from her peers and the nobles alike. In this society, strength and pride were everything. Weakness was not forgiven, and she was weak. Lyria's hands trembled as she pressed them to her stomach. She remembered her last meal, a single bitter fruit given to her by a stranger in the alley. It had not been enough. Her body ached for food, for energy, for life. The market noise was overwhelming. The smell of cooked meat, roasted grains, and sweet fruits made her hunger sharper. She wondered if anyone would ever care for her, but in this place, nobody did. Humans were rare, almost mythical beings, said to wander the stars but seldom seen. Stories told that they were tall, strong, and kind. Stories that made her heart ache with hope she did not dare to feel. She closed her eyes and whispered a silent wish. "I wish someone would care. Someone would see me, not just as weak, but as a person." A shadow fell across her hiding spot. Lyria looked up, startled. A large figure stood in the alleyway, tall and different from the aliens around her. He wore a simple uniform with a symbol she did not recognize. His eyes were warm, human eyes, curious but gentle. "Hey there," the figure said softly. "Are you okay?" Lyria froze. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that. Not the nobles, not the market vendors, not even the few aliens who sometimes pitied her. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but something in his voice made her stay. "You look hungry," he continued. "Do you want something to eat?" Hunger and hope clashed inside her. She had been so used to lies and mockery that the offer felt unreal. I can't," she stammered, unsure if she could even speak. The human crouched down to her level, placing a small pack on the ground. "You don't have to say anything, just eat." He pulled out a small tray with bright, warm food, smells she had only imagined in dreams. Bread, roasted meat, soft fruit, and a creamy drink. Her stomach growled again, louder than ever. Lyria's hands shook as she reached for the tray. The human did not stop her. He simply smiled and waited. Tentatively, she picked up a piece of bread. It was soft, warm, and tasted better than anything she had ever imagined. She took a bite, then another, and then the fruit. Her eyes widened in surprise as flavors she had never known danced on her tongue. The human watched her, patient and kind. He did not rush her. He did not laugh at her clumsiness. For the first time in her life, Lyria felt safe. She ate until her stomach was full, her body warming with strength and relief. When she finally looked up, the human smile was still there. "Feeling better?" he asked gently. Lyria nodded, her small voice trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. The words were simple, but they carried everything she had felt in the past days: the fear, the hunger, the longing for kindness. "You're welcome," he said. "My name is Orion. What's yours?" "Lyria," she replied, her voice growing, stronger. "Nice to meet you, Lyria," Orion said. "You don't have to be afraid. You're safe now." Lyria looked around the alley. The nobles and other aliens continued their noise in the market, but it felt far away, as if their cruelty belonged to another world. Here, in this small corner with this human, she felt hope. She did not know why humans were so different, so kind, so strong and gentle at the same time. She only knew that she wanted to stay near him, to learn from him, to see if this feeling, this care could last. As Orion packed up his tray and prepared to leave, he placed a gentle hand near her shoulder. "Don't worry, little one, I'll see you again. There's more to life than what they let you see here." Lyria's heart swelled with a strange new warmth. For the first time in her life, she did not feel weak. She felt noticed. She felt alive. And she would never forget the human who fed her like a queen when everyone else laughed at her. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the spaceport. Lyria watched Orion disappear into the crowd, leaving behind a promise she had never dared to hope for. A human had seen her. A human had cared. And somehow that small, simple act of kindness had begun to change everything. The sun had barely risen over the alien spaceport, and already the market buzzed with life. Ships descended with soft hums, merchants shouted, and aliens bargained fiercely for rare goods. Lyria had spent another sleepless night in the shadows, thinking of the food Orion had given her. The memory of warmth, taste, and kindness filled her mind, making the empty stomach in her belly ache even more. She crept along the market's edge, avoiding the nobles who had laughed at her the day before. Their golden horns and sharp eyes always seemed to find her. She knew better than to cross their path. Still, she could not stop looking for Orion. He had vanished into the crowd yesterday, but she could not shake the thought of his smile and gentle eyes. She moved closer to the center of the market, where the smells of fresh food were strongest. Her stomach growled, betraying her caution. A small tray of roasted vegetables sat unattended for a moment on a merchant's cart. Lyria darted forward, her fingers barely grazing the food before the merchant's long arms swooped down. "Thief!" he shouted. Lyria stumbled back, dropping the vegetables. She pressed herself against a metal crate, hoping no one would notice her trembling. But the laughter of the alien nobles reached her again, sharper than knives. "Still hungry, little weakling?" The blue-scaled noble sneered. He stepped closer, his golden horns shining in the sunlight. "Maybe the food will find its way into your tiny hands this time, if you are lucky." Lyria felt tears well up, hot and bitter. She wished she could disappear. She wished she could vanish from this cruel, laughing world. And then she heard it, a calm, gentle voice above the chaos. "Lyria." She froze and looked up. There, standing a few meters away, was Orion. His tall human figure stood out in the crowd, simple in appearance but commanding attention. His eyes scanned the market, stopping on her frail form. He moved quickly through the aliens, his stride confident but careful not to harm anyone. Lyria's heart leapt. She had thought humans were only stories, myths whispered among the desperate. And yet here he was. Orion knelt in front of her, pulling a small satchel from his belt. "I brought something for you," he said softly. The blue-scaled noble glared at Orion, confused. "What is this human doing?" he hissed. Orion ignored him. "You do not need to hide anymore. Here, eat." He opened the satchel, revealing a small selection of warm bread, roasted meat, and a creamy drink. The smell alone made Lyria's mouth water. Her hands trembled as she reached for the food. Hunger, shame, and hope collided inside her. She could not believe someone actually cared. Someone had actually remembered her from yesterday. Eat, Orion encouraged, his voice gentle but firm. Lyria bit into the bread. It was soft, warm, and far better than any food she had ever tasted. She tried the meat next, cautiously at first, then hungrily, as her stomach demanded more. Orion watched quietly, his presence calm, reassuring. The nobles watched too, their expressions a mixture of confusion and irritation. "Why does he feed her?" one whispered. "She is nothing." Orion's voice was steady. "She's not nothing. She is a living being like you. She deserves kindness, not cruelty." The words struck Lyria like a shield. She had never heard an alien speak this way. The words themselves felt foreign and powerful, almost magical. Her tears came, but this time they were not of fear. They were of relief. When she had finished eating, she looked up at Orion. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. Why are you kind?" Orion smiled. "Because it is the right thing to do. You should never go hungry while others laugh. Nobody deserves that." The blue-scaled noble gritted his teeth. He could not understand this human's behavior. He had power, wealth, and strength, yet he chose to. The air inside Orion's ship smelled warm and clean, a strange but comforting scent to Lyria. Soft lights glowed along the walls, and the hum of the engines sounded like a gentle heartbeat. She had never seen a place like this before. Every corner seemed organized, every tool in its place. For a moment she forgot the market, the laughter and the hunger that had followed her for so long. Orion motioned to a small table. "Sit here," he said. "I have something special for you." Lyria hesitated, unsure. The last time she had been offered food, it had been thrown at her by laughing nobles. But something in Orion's steady eyes told her this was different. She took a cautious step forward and sat down. Orion opened a small compartment and pulled out a tray filled with food: soft bread, roasted meat, steaming vegetables, and a creamy drink. The smell made her stomach ache with longing, and her hands trembled as she reached for it. "Eat," Orion encouraged. "Take your time. No one will laugh at you here." Lyria took a bite of bread. It was soft and warm, melting in her mouth. She closed her eyes, savoring the taste. She took a sip of the creamy drink and felt warmth flow through her chest. Every bite seemed to fill not only her stomach, but also a part of her heart that had been empty for years. Orion watched quietly, smiling. "You don't have to hurry," he said. "It's okay to enjoy your meal." For a moment, Lyria forgot everything. The market, the nobles, the cold nights spent hiding. None of it mattered. Here, she could eat, rest, and simply be. She ate, slowly at first, then with more confidence, finally letting herself feel full. Her small body relaxed for the first time in what felt like forever. When she finished, Orion spoke again. "Feeling better?" Lyria nodded, her eyes wide. "Yes, so much better," she whispered. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Orion said. "You deserve this, Lyria. Nobody should starve while others laugh." The words felt like a shield around her. For so long she had believed the world only offered pain and ridicule. And now, one human had shown her something entirely different. Kindness. She looked at Orion, noticing how calm and patient he was, how his eyes seemed to see her as more than just weak and small. Why are humans so different?" she asked softly. Orion chuckled. "I don't know if all humans are like me," he admitted. "But many of us believe that helping others makes life better. You don't need to be afraid. You don't need to hide." Lyria's stomach tightened, not with hunger but with hope. Could she really be safe? Could she really trust someone again? The thought was almost too big to bear. As she looked out the small window, she saw the bustling market far below. The nobles were still there, still laughing, still powerful. But up here, in Orion's ship, their cruelty felt distant, almost meaningless. Orion handed her a small plate of fruit. "Try this," he said. "It's sweet and good for your strength." Lyria picked up a slice of glowing fruit and tasted it. The flavor was unlike anything she had ever imagined. Sweet, soft, and full of life. She smiled for the first time. In years, a small timid smile that grew as she realized she could enjoy something purely for herself. "You're smiling," Orion noticed. "That's good. You deserve to smile." Her small voice was full of wonder. I never thought I could feel this safe or happy." Orion nodded. "You can, and you will, step by step." Lyria's mind drifted back to the market. The nobles would not understand this, they never could. They believed power and mockery were everything. But she had tasted something stronger: respect, kindness, and care. It felt like sunlight after years of shadows. As she finished her fruit, she realized something else. She felt stronger, not just in her body but in her heart. Every bite had given her energy, yes, but also courage. Courage to stand, to live, to hope. And she had Orion to thank for showing her the way. Suddenly, a shadow passed over the ship's window. Lyria froze, remembering the nobles. She looked outside. A group of aliens had noticed Orion's ship and were pointing, whispering. Their expressions were a mix of confusion, suspicion, and irritation. Orion noticed her glance. "Don't worry about them," he said. "They are not part of your world anymore. Up here you are safe." But Lyria could not help noticing. The nobles would not like this. They had laughed at her when she was weak. Now she had food, warmth, and a protector, and that made her different, dangerous in a way they could not understand. "Will they come here?" she asked softly, worry in her voice. Orion shook his head. "Not if we are careful, and even if they do, we will handle it. You are not alone, Lyria." The words settled over her like a blanket. Alone. She had spent so long being alone, being weak, being laughed at. Now for the first time, she felt she had a place, a companion, someone who believed in her. She sat quietly, eating slowly, letting the warmth fill her. Each bite, each sip, was a promise that the world could be kinder, that she could be more than the laughter of others, that humans, one human at least, could change everything. When she finished, she leaned back, breathing deeply. Orion smiled at her. "You are strong, Lyria, stronger than you think." She looked up, blinking back tears. I hope I can be," she whispered. "You can," Orion said firmly, "and I will help you step by step, meal by meal, moment by moment." Lyria felt something swell inside her chest. Not hunger, not fear, but hope. Hope that she could survive. Hope that she could grow strong. Hope that the kindness of one human could show her a new path. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. Outside the ship, the alien market carried on as always. The nobles still laughed, still scorned, still ruled with arrogance. But inside the ship, in the quiet glow of human care, Lyria felt something entirely new. Something powerful. She was no longer just a frail, starving girl. She was alive. She was seen. She was cared for, and that was the first step toward becoming more than anyone, human or alien, had ever expected. The sun was high in the alien spaceport, and the market was alive with noise, colors, and movement. Aliens of every size and shape bargained, shouted, and strutted across the glowing metal walkways. Lyria stood near the edge, holding Orion's hand, her small body trembling slightly. For the first time, she was leaving the safety of his ship and stepping into the world that had once terrified her. "Stay close," Orion said quietly. "We will walk slowly. You don't need to rush." Lyria nodded, her eyes wide. She felt strange, both excited and scared. The market seemed bigger than before, and the sounds were louder. She could feel the stares of others, curious, judgmental, and sometimes cruel. A group of blue-scaled nobles passed by, their golden horns gleaming in the sunlight. Lyria froze, remembering the scraps thrown at her, the laughter, and the sneers. But Orion squeezed her hand gently. "Remember," he whispered, "they do not matter." The nobles noticed her immediately. Their sharp eyes narrowed, and one of them muttered, "That's the little weakling, the one the human feeds." Lyria felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to shrink back, to disappear into the shadows. But something, inside her, had changed. The warmth of food, the gentle care, and the quiet strength of Orion had filled her with courage. She straightened her back, lifted her head, and walked beside Orion without looking away. The nobles stared, confused. "Why is she walking like that?" one asked. "She was nothing yesterday." Orion did not answer them. Instead, he guided Lyria to a small stall where colorful fruits and roasted vegetables were laid out. "Look," he said, pointing to the food. "You can choose anything you like." Lyria hesitated. The thought of taking something for herself openly, without fear of mockery, felt strange. But her hunger, combined with the gentle encouragement from Orion, gave her courage. She picked a bright red fruit, soft and fragrant, and took a small bite. The taste was sweet and full of life. The nobles whispered among themselves. Their scorn had never prepared them for this. Lyria eating freely, without shame, without fear. Orion knelt beside her. "See," he said quietly. "Nothing bad happens when you take care of yourself. You deserve this." Lyria smiled, a small but confident smile. The world felt different now. She had felt cruelty and hunger for so long that kindness seemed almost magical. But it was real, and she could feel it in every bite, every warm glance, every steady hand guiding her. A merchant noticed the nobles watching Lyria and Orion. "Who is that?" he asked, curiosity mixing with caution. "He is a human," one noble replied, voice tight. "And she? She is the weak one he feeds, nothing else." The merchant shrugged. "Humans are strange creatures," he said. "But I have seen worse. That girl seems stronger than before." Lyria looked up at Orion. "Stronger?" she asked, uncertain. Orion smiled. "Yes, stronger in ways they cannot see yet. You are brave to stand here, to eat, to walk. They think strength is only muscle or size. But real strength is courage, hope, and kindness. And you have all three now." Lyria's stomach tightened, not with hunger, but with pride. She realized he was right. She was small, yes, but she could stand. She could walk. She could face the market without hiding. And for the first time she believed she mattered. The nobles, still watching, grew frustrated. One stepped forward, attempting to block their path. "You do not belong here," he said, voice low but firm. "You are weak. You are nothing." Orion did not flinch. He stood tall, placing himself slightly in front of Lyria. "She belongs anywhere she wants," he said. "Kindness and courage give her a place whether you approve or not." The alien council hall was massive, filled with tall columns, shimmering lights, and a floor that gleamed like glass. Nobles from across the spaceport gathered here, their golden horns and sharp eyes marking their power. Lyria had never imagined being in a place like this. The air was heavy with arrogance and authority. Every eye seemed to judge her, waiting for her to falter. Orion walked beside her, calm and steady. "Remember," he said quietly, "you are not what they say you are. You are stronger than their words." Lyria nodded, gripping his hand tightly. Her heart beat fast. Not from fear this time, but from determination. She had learned something crucial in the past days. Cruelty only had power if she allowed it, and she would not allow it anymore. The nobles noticed her immediately. Whispers ran through the hall like fire. "Is that the weak girl?" One hissed. "The human's little pet?" Lyria held her head high. She had eaten well. She had rested. She had grown stronger. And now she would not shrink before them. She felt the warmth of courage spread through her chest, the same warmth Orion had given her through food, patience, and care. A tall, blue-scaled noble stepped forward, his eyes narrow. "You dare enter this hall?" he said, voice loud enough to echo. "You who starved while we laughed?" Lyria's stomach tightened for a moment, but she remembered Orion's words. Strength was not just size or power, strength was courage, hope, and kindness. She lifted her voice. "Yes," she said, clear and steady. "I starved. I was weak. And you laughed." The hall fell silent. Nobles who had once snickered now looked confused. This tiny, frail girl was speaking with confidence. "But," she continued, "someone showed me kindness. A human named Orion fed me. He treated me like a queen when you treated me like nothing, and because of him I am stronger than I was yesterday." Gasps ran through the hall. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. The concept of a human giving care, respect, and protection was foreign and disturbing to them. Lyria's words pierced their arrogance. "You speak boldly," the blue-scaled noble said, anger flickering in his eyes. "Do you think one human can teach you strength?" Lyria met his gaze without flinching. "Strength is not only muscle or wealth," she said. "It is courage and hope and the will to survive. He showed me that. And now I will not let your cruelty define me." Some of the younger aliens whispered among themselves, curiosity replacing mockery. A few nodded quietly as if inspired by Lyria's bravery. The elders frowned, unsure how to respond. They had power, yes, but courage like hers, backed by human. Care was unfamiliar and unnerving. Orion stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "She speaks the truth," he said. "Courage is stronger than cruelty. Care is stronger than mockery. And kindness, true kindness, can change even the hardest hearts." The blue-scaled noble ground his teeth, but he could not deny what he had seen. Lyria had changed. She was no longer the weak, trembling girl they had mocked. She was confident, alert, and proud. Lyria took a deep breath, feeling strength rise within her. "I am no longer afraid," she said. "I will eat, I will stand, and I will live. And if anyone dares to laugh at me again, they will see that kindness and courage are stronger than power and mockery." The hall remained quiet. Even the most arrogant nobles felt a strange respect, though they would never admit it aloud. Lyria's words were simple, yet powerful. The human who had fed her had taught her more than food. He had taught her the value of life, the strength of care, and the courage to stand. Orion smiled at her quietly. She had done it. She had faced the council, the nobles, and herself, and she had not faltered. One of the younger nobles stepped forward, hesitant but curious. You were so small, so weak. And now, you speak like that? Who is this human who helped you?" Lyria looked at Orion. "He is Orion. He showed me that strength is not cruelty. He fed me, cared for me, and gave me courage. That is how I became strong." The council murmured among themselves. Some were uncomfortable, some intrigued. The idea that one human could inspire such change was almost impossible to grasp. But the example was undeniable. The blue-scaled noble tried once more. "Do you expect us to respect you because of a human? That is absurd." Lyria smiled slightly. "No," she said. "I do not expect respect because of a human. I expect respect because I am alive, I am brave, and I will not let cruelty control me. That is my strength." A few aliens nodded quietly, realizing she was speaking truth. Power was not only in wealth or muscle, it could be in courage, in kindness, in hope. And humans, one human, had shown her the way. Orion stepped back, letting Lyria stand on her own. She looked around the hall, her small body now full of quiet confidence. She knew the nobles would never fully understand her, but it no longer mattered. She had discovered a strength they could not take from her. "You see," Orion said softly, "your courage is bigger than their power. Your hope is brighter than their mockery. You are stronger than they ever imagined." Lyria felt. A warmth spread through her chest. Hunger, fear, and shame had been replaced by strength, pride, and hope. She had faced the world that had once crushed her spirit, and she had survived. The council hall, full of whispers and glances, suddenly felt smaller. She no longer feared it. She no longer feared the nobles. She had something stronger than fear, something they could never understand. The care and guidance of a human who saw her as more than nothing. And in that moment, Lyria realized something important. She was no longer just a frail, starving girl. She was alive, brave, and full of hope. She had food, safety, and courage. She had a human who believed in her, and that belief had changed everything. The nobles might continue to laugh, to whisper, to try to intimidate. But Lyria would no longer bow to cruelty. She had been fed like a queen, nurtured with kindness, and inspired with courage. And now she would walk forward into the world stronger than anyone, human or alien, could have imagined. As Orion guided her out of the hall, she lifted her head high, walking with steady steps. The journey was far from over, but she had taken a giant leap. The laughter of others no longer defined her. The cruelty of the world no longer owned her spirit. She had discovered her strength, and nothing could take it away. The stars above. The spaceport glowed bright as Orion's ship rested on the landing bay. Its silver hull shined like a jewel under the alien moons. For many in the city, it was just another human vessel. But for Lyria, it was a place of safety, kindness, and change. Tonight, it would also become a hall of celebration. Orion moved inside the ship, arranging the long table in the dining chamber. Plates of food cooked with care were placed one after another. Human bread, roasted meat, fresh vegetables, and sweet fruits filled the air with rich smell. For a long time, Lyria simply stood near the door and watched. She could not believe. This was real. A feast, and it was all for her. "Come, Lyria," Orion said with a smile. "Tonight you are not a beggar. Tonight you sit at the head of this table." Her heart raced. No one had ever said such words to her. She walked slowly to the chair at the center, her steps uncertain. The table looked endless, and the food looked too grand for someone like her. She felt shy, but Orion guided her gently, pulling the chair out and letting her sit. Soon, others began to enter. Some humans from Orion's crew came, carrying more food and drinks. A few aliens also joined, those who had heard her speak in the council hall and were touched by her courage. For the first time in her life, Lyria saw aliens and humans sit together without mockery or cruelty. They looked at her not with laughter, but with respect. The meal began. Orion raised a glass of clear human drink. "To Lyria," he said firmly, "to her strength, to her voice, and to her courage." The crew and guests repeated the words. "To Lyria." The sound filled the room like music. Lyria lowered her eyes, tears rising. But these were not tears of shame. They were tears of joy. She had never imagined she would hear such voices raised. For her, she began to eat. The first taste of warm bread melted on her tongue. She remembered the times she had begged for crumbs in the street, and how others had laughed at her hunger. Now she was being served as if she was royalty. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. Not because she feared it would be taken away, but because she wanted to remember this moment forever. One of the young aliens sitting nearby leaned forward. "You are braver than any noble I know," he said. "You spoke the truth when no one else dared." His eyes showed real respect, not false pity. Lyria looked at him surprised. She had always thought no alien would ever defend her. But Orion's kindness had shown others a new way. She realized his actions had not just changed her life, but had opened the eyes of many. As the feast went on, laughter and talk filled the chamber. Humans shared stories of their travels, and some aliens listened with wide eyes. Lyria sat quietly at times, but Orion always drew her into the talk. He asked her to share her story of the streets, not to make her relive the pain, but to let others understand how far she had come, and when she spoke, her voice did not shake. It was steady, clear, and strong. "I starved while they laughed," she said softly. "I thought the world would never change, But a human gave me food, not just food for my stomach, but food for my soul. He showed me kindness when no one else would. That is why I am here today. The room grew silent. Every ear listened, even the hum of the ship.